Welcome back to Data Center News Asia. We're kind of just about getting back into our weekly schedule. Our weekly schedule we're getting back into there. My speech impediment aside.
Yeah, we've got it on. We're on track this week, and then next week it's all going to fall apart again.
Oh dear, that's a shame. Well, where are you off? I mean, I know this week there's obviously a lot of activity in the Melbourne market at the moment. I was just checking the DC Byte page, and Melbourne's starting to look a bit like Johor in terms of the ratio of live capacity to the mass. I think it's like 3.6 gigawatts of early stage developments in Melbourne. I guess
Yeah,
that's why all the data center guys were there this weekend, right?
yeah, nothing to do with the rugby that was going on at all. Checking
Yeah, I
the
knew there was
sites.
something. No Welsh players playing those, so it probably wasn't a big deal.
Well, gave away the penalty at the end, but anyway.
There is a Melbourne story, so we can start off with that one. Stack has secured 1.3 billion Aussie dollars, which I didn't convert to real dollars. I think it's about 850 million.
Yeah,
Yeah,
850.
850
Yeah,
US dollars of green financing in Australia to fund their Melbourne campus. This is in West Melbourne, that is near to the next DC ones, is it?
uh, general area, not particularly close. General area.
Okay, so yeah, this good story for them. Green finance, I guess, in Australia, it doesn't have specifics on what metrics this is tied to, but as we know, these loans are normally the interest rates remain favorably low if they hit certain green metrics on development, which are normally agreed between the lenders, which in this case are Deutsche Bank, MUFG, Natixis, and the Chinese Overseas Banking Corporation, and SocGen as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, not much more to say about this, but basically just to fuel, the next stage of development for their project down there.
Yeah. Melbourne's an exciting market. I really just wanted to segue in the rugby, to be honest. So it's not really the most interesting story of the week. Let's kick on to the big investment news, shall we? This was very interesting. So before I report this is a Bloomberg reported deal, and I haven't seen it on either the STT or the KKR sort of websites or official releases. But yes, KKR are considering the full acquisition of ST Telemedia after they put in 1 something billion dollars, $1.4 billion last year with Singtel to acquire a stake in the company.
Yeah, yeah. So currently they're sitting on just over 14% of the company, and yeah, it looks like they're hungry to get after additional data center assets. They do have interests in Nexera, which is Singtel's data center arm. That was probably 2 years ago. That investment at this stage, a while ago now. And then they've got GTR in Europe, and then they've got CyrusOne, who is got the biggest footprint, obviously in the States, but also has got a significant footprint in Europe, and also the partnership with the Osaka, what are they called? Osaka utility provider. Can't think of the Japanese name right now, or the abbreviation. But yeah, interesting deal. Like STT through their various um, arms, etc. They're already in or in the process of entering 12 countries throughout Asia and Europe. And yeah, I think the plan is to continue expanding.
Yeah, I've seen it. STT, I think, would be, depending on how you rank it, they're in the top. Yeah, I mean, there's no way of putting them outside the top three in Asia. I would think, they've got over a gigawatt and a half of live. That's counting Virtus, I suppose, but they are, certainly one of the larger capacity operators in the region, as you say, across a lot of countries. They have pretty much all the major hyperscalers in some metro or another. They also obviously have a pretty formidable enterprise presence. So yeah, it's like definitely one that people have been keeping an eye on. I think they were one of the companies who have been in the conversations like Air Trunk for some sort of big financial event, whether it was going to be rumors of IPOs or others. There's obviously those swirling around DayOne and PDG as well, companies at that sort of stage in their financial journey. But yeah, this is, KKR here, no, this would be a lot of crystal ball reading to start saying that they might be bringing, STT and CyrusOne on things together. I think probably what we're seeing more here is similar to what we talked about last week with Stonepeak investing into PDG alongside their other investments. That some of these really big private equity funds now are just wanting more and more exposure to the sector, and they're willing to take different stakes in different types of operators, and sometimes in the same location, even if they may be, potentially future competitors. I think it's probably not too important to their LPs who just went hungry for more action in data centers.
Yeah, seems like that's the case, to be honest.
Yeah, so no more details on this one yet. As I say, we do like to put a pinch of salt on a lot of the Bloomberg reporting because it does have a slightly less than 100% track record when it comes to some of the gossip stories. But you certainly wouldn't bet against this one if it goes through all of the different rounds of approvals it'll have to.
We famously don't gossip as well. Anyway, let's move on.
Okay, so should we do we've got some construction news next. So DayOne have broken ground on their Singapore data center. I think this is the first of the CFA projects to actually ground break. AirTrunk haven't yet, have they?
No, Equinix have though.
Okay, so this might be the first of the. So this was part of the 80 megawatts, the 4 projects that were awarded 2023 in the CFA announcement. There is another CFA going on at the moment. So the Singapore government, or the IMDA particularly, are entertaining conversations with various data center operators for this next tranche of 300 megawatts. This seems that the government and the operators involved have all learned some lessons from last time in terms of what's expected. We know that sustainability is a big criteria. I think the government is also really zeroing in, it sounds like, on the job creation aspect, on what these things mean for the Singapore economy and their broader sort of Singapore Plus. I'm in real trouble with my words today. Digital strategy. But yeah, this site is. Oh, where is this one, James? I can't see the location on my.
Jalan Borough.
Oh, okay. Nice. Well, I say reasonably central location, but of course, Singapore is a very small place, so everywhere looks very central to people on the map. Any other information on this particular site and what makes it special?
Well, we didn't get invited to the groundbreaking, which was kind of strange. But there was some interesting things as per the press release. So they talk about hydrogen-based energy, some sort of pilot scheme around this, which I certainly think is the first of its kind in this part of the world, but definitely specifically Singapore. They also have a tie-in with NUS and the whole tropical data center project there. So Dr. Lee speaking at the event as well. And then finally, there was also Semcorp were also present because they also discussed 10-year PPA agreement with Semcorp, which included some RECs as well. So, there had to be things to stand out as part of the bid, and I think DayOne did a great job in incorporating the tropical data center, hydrogen technology, and also renewables with Semcorp as well. So I think it must have had a pretty compelling bid, and obviously that's why they got a chunk of that capacity.
Excellent stuff. Well, it'll be interesting to see. I assume that they'll have some sort of conversations ongoing with customers, but one of the dynamics that will be challenging with this will be, what they lease it for, because DayOne are typically known as an operator who are very competitive on pricing in certain markets, and Singapore's obviously branding itself and with the power costs is more of a premium application sort of use case, I think, based on some of the numbers I've heard floating around.
Yeah, it did mention in the release that they'll be able to support basically all the different types of workloads it could potentially be. So my assumption is this is going to be a bit of a hybrid. It's not going to be I'd say it would be multiple clients in here as opposed to like a built to suit style arrangement.
Okay, well, good for the DayOne team, good for Singapore, Majula Singapore, all that, almost up to SG60. Bridge Data Centers have broken ground on their facility in Thailand. This is their first Thailand one, I think.
It's actually not. They do have a small retail facility there. But first of their greenfields, they acquired that other one.
Right, okay. I may have got the wrong article here for my notes because it's only saying that there's a total capacity of 200 megawatts. How big is the first phase, or how big is the part that they've actually broken ground on?
didn't write that down. Not actually sure off the top of my head, but yeah, to your point, I would imagine it's a phased approach as well. So you'd probably get, well, the client is we all know who the client is, and they do require big chunks of capacity all at once. So this could actually be not as many phases as you might think, and they might try and deploy as much in one or two goes as possible. Interesting, the naming convention here, QHI01. So I don't know where they've got that one from. But yeah, I think we'll see a lot more kind of developments like this, hot on the heels of them receiving that $2.8 billion injection back only 3-4 months ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Thailand's a pretty hot market, and this would, well, depending on the construction schedule, but this would certainly put them way into the races for capacity in Chonburi, which is a popular area for that particular customer, certainly. NTT have topped out on their Jakarta facility. This is 2A, Jakarta 2A, which is one of the ones
downtown.
Oh, this is in the downtown ones, yeah, okay.
Nice. So they've got two kind of clusters, downtown, where the first facility is, and then Jakarta 2. So this is 2A, which is kind of almost like a bolt-on to that first one. Anyway, topped off early 26. This will be coming online, bringing an additional 12 megawatts downtown Jakarta.
Excellent. Well, we know that downtown capacity tends to get leased out pretty quickly. Even the vacancy rates in Jakarta are still higher than some places in Southeast Asia.
No, I think they'll do well there. NTT are particularly strong in that subcluster. Moving on to this kind of slightly strange story about the Chinese government.
Yes, so this is interesting. We've talked a number of times, usually in the context of the GDS DayOne and the bridge chin data stories of major Chinese operators coming into the rest of the region. But the Chinese market has been a very interesting one, shall we say, over the past 5 or 6 years. Vast amounts of potential, huge amounts of domestic demand, but one of the quirks of a demand or a supply side economy, I should say, is that they rather overbuilt in certain areas. I think government forecasting, encouragement of infrastructure projects. And yeah, there was this big drive over the last couple of years, 2022, they were they called it Eastern Data, Western Computing, which was the idea of building huge amounts of compute capacity in different parts of China where power would be very cheap, certainly like Western China or like the north and the colder regions, that sort of stuff. But of course, most of China's compute demand is in the east, in that sort of Shanghai, Shenzhen part of the country, and it's had mixed results. I think the projects have interesting ideas, but ultimately when the demand is being taken up by private companies, they need it where their latency needs are, and yet they have vast amounts of capacity that are unleased, and so this is, I think, a government initiative to do something about that in a sort of kind of quasi free market Chinese sort of way.
Yeah, so we've only got like 90 seconds left, so I think the nuts and bolts is they're going to be selling compute power basically, and I think you kind of summed it up well. Apparently, they've got the big 3 telcos involved, so China Mobile, Unicom, and China Telecom. So yeah, one to keep an eye on. Interesting to see how this goes. I'm going to race into the next story, which is also kind of related to China. Basically, NVIDIA last week in China said, even though H20 chips restrictions are being lifted, they basically don't have enough to kind of meet demand, and they're not going to start up production again on that particular chip, but instead they've got a new one called the RTX Pro, which will be used to serve China. So interestingly, what happens there, a lot of the Americans are still kind of complaining about it, saying they shouldn't be getting any chips at all, but let's see what happens. SoftBank have developed the world's largest DGX B200 SuperPod cluster, 13.7 exaflops. And finally, the Sunway story. Sunway have had to report to Bursa Malaysia that one of their employees is getting looked into for corruption. This relates to the awarding of some subcontractor contracts on one of their $42.5 million projects.
Yeah, luckily we're running out of time because that's a story. It would be hard for us not to launch into some rampant speculation. But there were different news and gossip stories involving flash watches, suitcases full of cash. So that's the story I'd encourage people to look into in their own time and report back in
Right.
the comments.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Cheers.